In 1932, the Australian government launched a military operation to combat a growing threat in Western Australia. It wasn't a rebellion. It wasn't an invasion. It wasn't even human. It was emus. Yes, actual emus. Those large flightless birds native to Australia, some of the fastest running animals on land, and certainly not what you'd expect to find in military crosshairs. But this bizarre chapter of history, known as the Great Emu War, was not a joke. It was very real. And most incredibly, the emus won. Let's rewind. After World War I, thousands of returning Australian soldiers were given land in Western Australia as part of a government resettlement program. It was a well-intentioned effort to help veterans reintegrate into society and rebuild their lives. But the land was rough, dry, and difficult to farm. By the early 1930s, things went from bad to worse. The Great Depression hit, wheat prices crashed, and these farmers, many of them former soldiers, were left in poverty. And then came a new problem. Every year, emus migrate westward after breeding season, moving by the tens of thousands in search of food and water. In 1932, an estimated 20,000 emus invaded the Campion district of Western Australia. They trampled crops, they knocked over fences, they destroyed fields. Farmers watched helplessly as their already meagre harvests were shredded by enormous unstoppable birds. With few options left, the farmers turned to the federal government for help. Their request? Military assistance. And shockingly, the government agreed. Sir George Pearce, then Minister of Defence, authorised the deployment of soldiers to fight the emu menace. A small unit led by Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery was sent to the region. Their arsenal included 2 soldiers, 2 Lewis machine guns, and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. This wasn't just pest control, it was officially classified as a military operation. The first engagement began in early November 1932. Soldiers located a group of over 50 emus and opened fire. But right away, things went wrong. The birds scattered in all directions. The gun jammed. The soldiers barely hit anything. In the days that followed, more ambushes were attempted. But the emus proved surprisingly difficult targets. They ran at speeds up to 50 kilometers per hour, over 30 miles per hour, and their erratic zigzag movements made them nearly impossible to shoot. Desperate to adapt, the soldiers mounted a machine gun on the back of a truck. The idea was to chase the birds across the countryside and fire from the moving vehicle. But the terrain was rough, the truck bounced wildly, and the gunner couldn't aim properly. Not a single emu was hit in that attempt. By the end of the first week, hundreds of rounds had been fired. Fewer than 100 birds had been killed. The media quickly caught wind of the operation and had a field day. Headlines mocked the government. Emus outrun army. Birds proved too smart for soldiers, and machine guns failed to stop feathered foe. The public laughed. The farmers were furious. And the military? Embarrassed. The operation was temporarily halted, but the emus were still destroying crops. Under pressure from farmers, the military tried again. The second phase began in mid-November. This time soldiers focused on smaller groups of birds, which improved their kill rate slightly. Over the course of several weeks, roughly 1,000 emus were killed, but at the cost of nearly 9,000 rounds of ammunition. That's nearly 10 bullets per bird. Major Meredith later said, "If we had a military division with the tactical ability of these birds, it would face any army in the world." Eventually, the government called off the operation entirely. The Great Emu War was over, and the emus had emerged victorious. In the aftermath, the government refused to send soldiers again. Instead, they introduced a bounty system that rewarded civilians for each emu killed. Farmers also invested in stronger fences to keep the birds out. Ironically, these civilian-led strategies worked far better than the military operation. But by then, the story had already cemented itself into legend. The Great Emu War remains one of history's most absurd episodes, often cited in military discussions, turned into internet memes, and even featured in video games. It's a rare case where humanity, with all its weapons and planning, was defeated by nature. Let's wrap up with a few quick facts. Emus can run at speeds up to 50 kilometers per hour, making them faster than most military vehicles in rough terrain. They're incredibly resilient and can survive with little water for days. Their legs are powerful enough to break bones with a single kick, and despite firing thousands of rounds, the soldiers never inflicted significant damage. No humans died in the Great Emu War, but the emus walked away unbothered. What can we learn? Overconfidence can be risky. Not every problem calls for force. Sometimes nature wins.